Welcome again to another episode of You and the Law. Today we'll be talking about the right to freedom of religion. It's provided for under section 38 of the 1999 Constitution. It provides that every person shall be entitled to the right to freedom of conscience, thoughts, and religion, including the right to change one's religion or belief, and either in community with others or alone, and in private or in public, to manifest or propagate such religion or belief in worship, teaching, practices, and observances. Now, that's subsection 1 of section 38 of the 1999 Constitution. Subsection 2 of section 38 provides that a person attending a place of education cannot be compelled to participate in any specified method of religion or belief. You cannot force a person just for the reason that is in a place of education to take part in a religious practice that is not consenting to, or his parents or guardians are not consenting to. Now, sub 3 is that religious bodies can establish a place of training and run it. And sub 4 makes provisions for, it prohibits belonging to secret societies. Now we're going to talk about the diverse implication of this right to freedom of religion. Now, the right to freedom of religion is not just a Nigerian issue. It didn't just start today. It didn't just start with the 1999 Constitution. It's a global matter. And as far back as 1948, under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 18 made clear provisions protecting the rights of individuals to choose whatever belief or religion they want to partake in. Now, it didn't just stop again with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of 1948. In 1966, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, also in Article 18, made provisions protecting the rights of individuals to take part in only the religious and the belief that they are convinced about. Also in 1981, there was a United Nations Declaration on the elimination of every form of intolerance and discrimination on the basis of religion. And in Article 6, the declaration made provisions specifying the methods of expression of religion and beliefs that cannot be questioned and that every person is entitled to just because he's a human being. Now, that's the mode of practicing one's religions includes even publishing and disseminating information relevant to one's religion and sending it about. It also includes worship in public places or in private. It also includes seeking for funds, voluntary contributions from people to fund whatever religious belief one is convinced about. Now, the tenor, the implication, the major import of the right to religion is that it seeks to protect both theistic, monotheistic, and atheistic views. What it means is that this was the commentaries of the United Nations Committee on Human Rights. It doesn't just seek to protect the Christian religion or the Muslim religion. It protects even people who choose not to believe in it, to have any religious beliefs. So once the right seeks to allow individuals to choose what ways they want to live their lives and to foreclose avenues of interferences, either by other individuals or by state actors. Now, the right to freedom of religion, it has been tested in Nigeria and in many cases. One thing to note about the right to religion is that at the point of holding a religious belief, at the point of having a conviction, a religious belief, or any other kind of belief, there's no law restricting anybody from having a certain belief. Where the law comes in is in restraining how people propagate or manifest their beliefs. Now, when we talk about holding beliefs, there was a distinguished jurist of the Middle Ages. He's known as Chief Justice Bryan. He once mentioned that even the devil knoweth not the heart of a man. The devil cannot know what's going on in the heart of a man. So there's no law that can regulates the thoughts or the beliefs of a man. It is only the propagation, the manifestation of such belief. That's where the law comes in to determine which ways are permissible and which ways are not permissible. Now, in Nigeria, for instance, holding a belief and setting up, propagating your belief, at the point of holding your belief, there are no restrictions. There's an unfettered freedom to hold a belief that one wants to hold. And there's also a measure of freedom in propagating whatever belief one has. For instance, in Nigeria, a religious body does not need any form of registration with the government to function. In fact, a religious body maintains some level of neutrality and non-intervention from state forces in their internal affairs. There was a case that decided this matter. It was Shodeinde and the registered trustees of Ahmadiyya movement in Islam. In that case, Ayola JSC, a Supreme Court justice, he made it very clear that a religious body has the primary control over its internal affairs. It's only when they cannot handle their internal affairs that the courts and the government agencies, instrumentalities of the state, can be invoked. And at that point where disputes amongst the members of a religious body comes to the court is not bound by the internal beliefs and the faith of the religious group. Their rights will be determined in accordance by the law. It is always justice in accordance with the law. And that was how, in the case of the registered trustees of the Rosicrucian order, AMOC, and Awoni versus Awoni, in the case Awoni, that's the registered trustees of the Rosicrucian order, they filed a suit against Awoni, complaining of libel, that they have been defamed. And in defending the suit, Awoni claimed justification that the Rosicrucian order was a satanic society. So the court, in determining whether there was a libel, whether the Rosicrucian order, that's AMOC, is a satanic and evil society, they looked at all the documents, examining the tenets of their beliefs. So the courts held at the end of the day that there was justification. The court examined all the documents. It's just like examining the Bible if you want to determine the religious belief of a Christian. That's how the court was unfettered. They went into the tenets of the belief of the Rosicrucian order. That was how to determine that the court can interfere in the internal affairs of a religious body, but outside dispute, when there are no disputes, a religious body in Nigeria has an unfettered freedom to run their affairs. And this is unlike the situation in many other countries. For instance, if you go to Russia, there are stipulations, there are conditions, there are requirements for religious bodies to be registered. In Russia, for instance, there's a requirement that for a religious body to be registered, it must have at least 300 members. And those 300 members are members who are already citizens of Russia. The implication of such kind of regulations is that they tend to foreclose missionaries, faiths that are not known to the state, from coming into the state. The same thing happened in Austria. In fact, there's a draft law in Austria where they require 1/4 of the population of Austria. For any religious group to be registered, it must have 1/4 of the entire population of Austria. The same thing with Lithuania. These are just measures to restrain the practice of religion. But in Nigeria, these are not the case, and this is in consonance with the provisions of Section 38 of the 1999 Constitution and the different articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and other international instruments that we have already mentioned. Now, we talked about unfettered freedom to hold beliefs. Now, let's also talk about manifesting or propagating one's beliefs. That's where there's a lot of regulations. In manifesting a belief, either in worship, teaching, observances, or practices, the law has set up many forms of regulations. Now, first of all, we're going to look at how the courts have, through different cases, many cases, myriad of cases, determined the import and the extent of the right to freedom of religion. Now, in a case, the Medical and Dental Practitioners Disciplinary Tribunal versus Okonkwo, the court held that it was a Jehovah Witness, a doctor transfused blood to a Jehovah Witness, a member of the Jehovah Witness sect, and the Jehovah Witness, as the person who brought the case to court, now challenged the of course forcible transfusion of blood, even despite his own private beliefs, which forbids him from taking a blood transfusion. The Supreme Court held it very clearly that the doctors he was trying to defend his action by citing public interest, and public that is not in line with public interest to allow somebody to die because he chose not to take a certain medical treatment. But the court held that a person has a right to determine which medical treatment he can choose, which he can opt for, and if he feels there's a religious practice, his own religious practice, that forbids him from taking any form of treatment, the court said that the person is entitled to have his wishes respected. Now, that's it for medical treatment. What the summary of the case is that a person whose religious beliefs forbids him from taking any form of medical treatment, the court will respect that wish, because a person has a freedom to manifest his religious beliefs and manifest it in his convictions and in his practices. The issue of the right to freedom of religion has also come up for several school policies and rules. For instance, we know that in many northern states where Muslim is practiced, that's Muslim is the prevailing religion. Ladies there wear what we call hijab, a covering of the head and their bosom. Now, there was a point that girls, Muslim girls, they were wearing this hijab to school, and we all know that schools have uniforms, especially primary and secondary schools. So the issue came up for determination. It was in the case of Abdul Karim, Asiyat Abdul Karim, and the government, Lagos State government. The court held that a person has a right, that the practice of wearing hijab is an established practice within the Muslim religion, and a person cannot be stopped from manifesting his belief just because there's a school regulation insisting that the person must wear a certain uniform. So in that case, the court held that a Muslim girl can wear hijab even in public schools, despite the regulations for uniforms in public schools. The same thing was decided by the court in a case that arose from Osun State. That was Sheikh Salahuddin Olayiwola and the Osun State government. The same thing, there was a school regulation requiring that hijab will not be allowed in public schools. But this man, the sheikh, went to court with many other Muslims, and they challenged it, and the court held in their favor. It's also worthy of note that the case that arose from Lagos State, the Abdul Karim and the Lagos State government, is currently pending in the Supreme Court. So we've not had the last word as it relates to Muslim girls wearing hijab to school. There's another twist to this, right? It was in very long ago. There was this case, Adamu versus the Attorney General of Borno State. In that case, it was in Gwoza local government of Borno State. The local government council, Gwoza local government council, was paying Islamic religious knowledge teachers, but parents had to now pay for Christian religious knowledge teachers. So they took it to court that if the local government must pay Islamic religious teachers, they must also pay Christian religious knowledge teachers. That there can't be a discrimination on the basis of religion when the money is being paid from the fund of the state. The case was decided on the basis of a preliminary objection. That the case was decided on the basis of the 1979 Constitution, and the preliminary objection was raised that the court didn't have jurisdiction because the matter was contained in Chapter 2 of the 1979 Constitution, which was the fundamental objectives of the state, which is not justiciable. So, but at the Court of Appeal held that on the basis of the facts before the Court of Appeal, that there are established rights that nobody can be discriminated on the basis of his religion. They sent the case back for retrial in the Borno State High Court. Now, another area where the right to freedom of religion has often come up is in the area of communal duties. Now we know that in several communities, there are, of course, established customary and communal practices. These have come to courts, and in deciding these cases, the courts have looked at the extent, the boundaries of the right to freedom of religion. One of those cases was the famous case of Agbai versus Okabwe. In Agbai versus Okabwe, it was again a Jehovah Witness. The Jehovah Witness, a member of the Jehovah Witness sect, said that he's not entitled, that his religion forbade him from joining age grade associations. And the matter came up in the High Court for decision. And the court held that truly a person must not belong to the age grade association if his religion forbade him from belonging, that he's entitled to manifest his religious beliefs in his own dealings as a human being. And on that basis alone, the court held that age grade is not compulsory if you feel that your religious conviction does not permit you to belong to any age grade. There's also another case in Mkpa versus Nkume. What was in question? He was still a member of the Jehovah Witness sect. He challenged the community, saying that he doesn't have to pay development levy or participate in communal sanitation. In that case, the court also held that a person's religious belief, if it forbids him from taking part in such activities, that he's entitled to the respect for his religious beliefs. Now, there's also another case. This one arose from Benue State. This is Ojonye and Adebudu. In Ojonye and Adebudu, a widow resisted the intention of his husband's family to do some animal sacrifices as part of the burial rites for his husband. The Benue State High Court decided that the widow is entitled to the respect for his religious belief. If she feels that her religious belief forbade animal sacrifices as part of burial rites for her late husband, that wish has to be respected. But in issues of statutory duties, the court has exercised certain restraints. But let's come down to the limitation of the right to freedom of religion. Now, Section 45 of the 1999 Constitution and also the other relevant articles of the international charters and instruments that we mentioned also prescribe certain limitations to the right to religion, right to freedom of religion. Now, Section 45 makes it very clear that there could be an exception to the right to religion where there is a law in the public interest, in the interest of defense, public health, public morality, and where there's a need to respect the rights of others. In these restricted circumstances, and in circumstances where the practice justifiable in any other democratic state, that the court can hold that a person's right to freedom of religion can be restricted. Now, of course, for the issue of where there's a law, the court, the Anambra State High Court, in a very popular case, Onyeka Enoch versus Akobi, the court held that in that case, the young girl, Onyeka, she was seeking admission into the public school, secondary school, and she kept a long hair. And the school had a regulation that pupils and students of their school must cut their hair low. So the girl insisted that based on her religious belief that she would not cut her hair. Now, the court relied on that regulation, saying that for public schools, females must cut their hair, to hold that the girl's right to freedom of religion was not infringed, was not violated, in deciding, in supporting the refusal to admit her to public school. Now, if you observe the tenor of the exceptions, it will seem to suggest that almost everything the government wants to do in restriction of the right to freedom of religion can be done. It is so woolly, it's not clear-cut. The exceptions are not clear-cut. They are very broad. Talking about public health, public morality, public defense, and the interest of other people also, the rights of other people. So we have to look at international best practices. And in this regard, what other courts, other climes have done is to rely more on the yardstick of practices that are justifiable or necessary in a democratic society. A very popular case was decided by the European Court of Human Rights. It was the case between Manousakis and others versus Greece. In that case, still again, members of Jehovah's Witness, they applied to the government of Greece for a prayer house permit. Now, the relevant government officials declined. They were delaying. They didn't want to refuse or accept. And because of that, those people did a program. They did their prayer. And the government now, of course, invoked the provision requiring them to register, to convict them for not registering and still carrying out their worship in a public place. Now, these people took the case. They challenged their convictions before the European Court of Human Rights. And the court held that the government just raised the issue of the formality of registration as a weapon. They weaponized it to now hunt the members of Jehovah's Witness, and held that a practice that is justifiable in a democratic society imports the consideration of pluralism, that a democratic society usually have a lot of religious groups, and for a certain decision to be held to be justifiable in a democratic society, it must consider the fact that a democratic society will have a lot of religious groups and they will have to exist side by side without, once they are not infringing on any other person's right. That was what the court held, and of course upturned their convictions, holding that it was the government was witch hunting the members of Jehovah's Witness. Now, over and above the personal considerations of the personal implications, that's how individuals' right to freedom of religion can be affected. There are also other very cogent issues that arise from the right to freedom of religion. If you look at Section 10 of the 1999 Constitution, it makes it very clear that no state in Nigeria or the federal government can adopt a state religion, can adopt any religion as the religion of that state or for Nigeria as a whole. Now, this raises a lot of issues. For instance, we know that about 12 states in the northern region now have the Sharia criminal justice system. It was Zamfara State that blazed the trail in 2000 and introduced a Sharia criminal law system, criminal justice system. Now, what is the implication of using public funds to fund the practice of Sharia criminal law in these 12 northern states? These are questions that must agitate our mind. They are questions that go to the roots of the right to freedom of religion. Now again, if you look at the federal government and state governments, there is the Pilgrims Commission at the federal government level. There are pilgrim boards at the state level. Almost all the states in the federation have a pilgrims board. The function of the pilgrims board and the Pilgrimage Commission in the federal level is just to fund visits to either Jerusalem or to Saudi Arabia, that's to Mecca, by usually members of Muslim and Christian religion. Now, what is the implication? Can the federal government and the state government, using public funds, since Section 10 envisages a secular society in Nigeria, a society where the state is different from, of course, the church and other religious groups, what is the import, what is the implication of using government money to fund pilgrimages to Mecca and pilgrimages to Jerusalem? How can we accommodate it within the right to freedom of religion and Section 10 of the 1999 Constitution? Now again, these are issues that should agitate our minds in relation to the right to freedom of religion. This is just in a nutshell the major issues that are thrown up by the right to freedom of religion. The decisions of the courts that Vorevi looked at, they showed us how they apply to the individual and how they apply to several aspects of our lives, both in our communities, in the churches and in many other religious groups. It also applies to our right to choose whatever course of medical treatment that is in agreement with our beliefs. This is the right to freedom of religion, the right to freedom of conscience, thought, and religion, as contained by Section 38 of the 1999 Constitution. We thank you for listening. We thank you for viewing. We urge you to subscribe to this channel as we wait for other aspects of our fundamental rights and our legal rights as it pertains to every person in Nigeria. Thank you very much and see you next time.